The main takeaway of the pink goldfish is the idea that your flaws actually hold the key to what makes you awesome. And so what I wanted people to think about is, what are those things that make us a little imperfect? What makes us weird? And how do we actually embrace those things and actually double and triple and down on them? So the growth of a business is a lot like the growth of a goldfish. And there's 5 factors that you take into account in terms of growth. And so the first one is this, is for a goldfish, what's the size of the bowl or the pond that they're in? And in business, that's simply the market that you serve. And the larger the market, the more you can grow. The second one is simple. The growth of a goldfish is also impacted by the amount of other goldfish that are in that bowl or pond. And in business, that's your competition. And that's an inverse. So the more competition you have, the harder it's going to be to grow. The third growth factor is the quality of the water for a goldfish. So the amount of nutrients that are in the water, how cloudy the water is. And in business, that's really about the economy. So the ability to get capital to grow your business, things like consumer confidence, how confident people are in purchasing. The fourth factor is your first 120 days of life. So for a goldfish, how they get out of the gate and grow in that critical period, absolutely key. Same thing in business. Your first 120 days of starting up is key to how big you'll actually get. And the fifth thing is the idea of genetic makeup. So what is a goldfish born with that separates it from all of the other goldfish? And the more that their genes separate them and they stand out, the bigger that they will grow. The weaker their genes are, the more they're like all of the other goldfish in the bowl or the pond, the less that they will grow. And so genetic makeup in business is simply differentiation. And differentiation is key. And so we talk about the 5 things: the market, your competition, the economy, how you do first 120 days of being a startup, and differentiation. The only thing you control out of those 5 things, assuming you've already been in business for 4 months, is how you differentiate. How do you stand out in a sea of sameness? And that is what the pink goldfish is all about. So we studied over 250 brands when we put the Pink Goldfish project together. And we found really there's only 2 keys to differentiation and standing out in that sea of sameness. And the first one is this. It's about embracing what makes you weird or different and unique. And how do you actually embrace that and bring that to life? And then the second thing is the idea of how do you avoid being normal? So instead of benchmarking and following the leader, how do you actually do, in some instances, less of what others consider as normal? So the kind of cornerstone in the Pink Goldfish of the 7 different ways is this idea of flaunting. And a great example of that comes from a cough syrup company in Canada. Now, if you think about cough syrup, what's the downside of cough syrup? And it's simply the taste. No one's ever in the history of time drank anything and said, "Ooh, this tastes so good. It tastes like cough syrup." Those words have never been echoed because cough syrup by its nature doesn't taste good. So Buckley's, Canadian cough syrup company, instead of trying to say, we've created different flavors or it doesn't taste as bad as you think, they actually flaunted the fact that it tastes horrible. And by flaunting it in their campaigns, they would compare their cough syrup to trash bag leakage and sweaty gym socks. And what was the message? It tastes awful because it works. And by flaunting that and embracing it, they went from 2% of the market in Canada all the way up to 11%. That's a 550% increase in their brand equity and in their sales by embracing who they were. And that's a great example of flaunting. So in studying over 250 companies, we found there's essentially 7 different ways to be able to create a pink goldfish. And the cornerstone of this framework is this idea of flaunting, of embracing what makes you different or unique. But there's 6 more. And the acronym that we use, it's actually 2 words that you put together to make one word, is this idea of flaws and awesome. And if you put flaws and awesome together, you get flawsome. And so flawsome is the idea that you should actually embrace your imperfection and actually create it. So if the F is for flaunting, the L is for lopsiding, the A is for antagonizing, the W is for withholding, the S is for swerving, the O is opposing, and the M in flawsome is micro-weirding. And these are the 7 different ways that you can either lean into what makes you unique or different, or purposefully pull back and avoid being normal like everyone else. So essentially, when you want to create your own pink goldfish, we've created a framework that we call the 4A framework. And the first A is this idea of awareness. It's taking that hard look in the mirror and trying to understand what makes you different, but also asking your customers, your employees, even your suppliers and vendors for them to tell you why they do business with you. And once you've understood and become aware, you're ready to jump to the second A. And that's all about kind of acceptance and wrapping your arms around those differentiation and actually appreciating those things that make you different. The third A is the idea of alignment. And to align means you want to make sure that your website reflects that uniqueness and weirdness. You want to make sure your employees understand it, that your office reflects that uniqueness, and that even your products and your packaging and everything that you do is in line with that differentiation. The last A, and maybe the most fun one, is the idea of amplification. How do you amplify? Either maximizing by turning up the dial way up, or purposefully turning the dial down to 0 in some things. And how do you do either a little bit more to bring that weirdness to life, or how do you do a little less to avoid being normal, to stand out in that sea of sameness? So I'm a big fan of a thing called bar tricks. Now, a bar trick is much different than a magic trick. Typically in the magic trick, you do the trick, you never tell anybody how it's done. A bar trick is a little bit different to me. This is around friends at a bar. You maybe use whatever's around you, a salt and pepper shaker, a coin, a toothpick, a napkin. You do the trick, but you always show how it's done. It's more about sharing as opposed to performing. Best man at my wedding worked in the bar business. Over the course of many years, we collected over 75 examples. Last year we came out with a book called Bar Tricks, Bad Jokes, and Even Worse Stories. And it's a little thing that makes me weird, and until I wrote the Pink Goldfish book, I really was a little hesitant sometimes to do a bar trick. But now I just actually lean in because it's about what makes me unique. And it's about sharing, and I want to actually amplify that to bring more of that to life. So this is about, I think, the 40th AMA chapter I've spoken at. And I have this crazy goal, talk about lopsiding. By the end of 2020, I want to have spoken at all 70 plus chapters throughout the country and all of North America. And I think, as a marketer myself, I spent 2 decades on both the agency and the brand side as a marketer, that marketing has changed rapidly. And marketing is no longer about what you tell people, it's actually about what people experience and what they tell others about that experience, how they feel. And so I think AMA is a great platform. Everything I talk about is how do you create an experience that differentiates you from your competition. And so anyone who wants to make a lasting change within marketing, I believe, should be giving back and speaking at the chapters, because you have people that are coming out here, a great community here in AMA, Iowa, of people that are actually affecting change every day. And so I think it's a great platform for my message. If you want to learn more about the idea of a goldfish, the idea of doing little things that make you stand out in the marketplace, feel free. You can either go to purplegoldfish.com or you can go to my personal website, which is stanphelpsspeaks.com.